Let's talk about PulseX. The most popular applications on the Ethereum network are NFTs, which I don't like, but I wish I did like, because everyone gets a copy of their NFTs over on PulseChain, right? So you overpaid for a serial number loosely related to a JPEG that may or may not still be hosted on the internet. Congrats. You now have that same serial number on a new chain with the same keys that access it and mostly the same code. Good for you. Congratulations. Now, what's the second most popular thing? Well, the second most popular, and by the way, these measurements aren't totally accurate. So when I say NFTs are the most popular, it just means they consume the most gas. I don't think they actually have the most users. I think a lot more people trade on decentralized exchanges than use NFTs. I just think the NFTs suck up a lot of gas. So Uniswap has the majority of on-chain exchange liquidity in the Ethereum ecosystem. So they've got 8.2 billion locked up. And then SushiSwap is number 2. And they've got like 3.4 billion locked up, something like that. And by locked up, it means sitting there providing liquidity in the pairs. And actually, I hope that they're adding Uniswap v2 and v3 together. I think Uniswap v3 has a little bit more liquidity. Well, maybe 4x more liquidity than Uniswap v2 for, say, like the Ethereum USDC pair. I'm using a site that sucks to do these measurements, made by a founder that sucks, so I'm not going to name it, but you know, when people do their jobs poorly in one area, you find out often that they do their jobs poorly in a lot of other areas. So I'd have to manually verify these numbers, but let's just say that maybe the ratios hold. Maybe they, it's 3 times more in Uniswap. So, and then everything else is like way less liquidity, right? Like Bancor has way less, and on down the list. So what is Uniswap? Uniswap is a place. It's probably one of the most popular apps, like number 1 or 2 on the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think it's very useful. Solving on-chain exchange, removing counterparty risk, being an oracle and not having to use some other oracle. It's awesome, right? It's all very, very good. And for a long time, they were totally open source. So Uniswap v1 had no admin keys, and it was totally open source. Then with v2, there was a light admin key, and that they could flip a switch that would take some of your a fee. And then they duct taped a token on, which was the Uni token, and everyone went wild. They loved it. Cool. Great. And then I heard a rumor, by the way, that Hayden Adams cashed out a couple billion on Coinbase. Oh, okay, man. So, just a rumor. Now, Uniswap v3 isn't open source. So you have to wait 2 years. So after they released it, they put a 2-year timer that it would become open source after 2 years. I can't remember what that type of restrictive license is called. And it ain't been 2 years yet. So the best, most battle-hardened, most audited, reliable on-chain exchange automated market maker system is Uniswap v2. That's open source. And so it's really neat that Uniswap v2 put that platform fee into the code with a switch that one day they could turn it on if they wanted to. Well, that's really awesome, because we're forking that and we're turning on the switch. Thanks. Don't have to do any work, right? That part is easy. Now, there's a harder part. And so the hard part is, well, you could say there's 2 hard parts. So this is PulseX. So PulseX is a fork of Uniswap that activates the platform fee that's built into the Uniswap code. So it's secure as could be. But the issue is that it's only designed to send the platform fee to a single address. Then there's another feature where you can choose another address that's allowed to change the first address. I would say disable that. Why would you want admin keys? That's an admin key. You don't want admin keys, in my opinion. So you remove the ability, or just don't set the address So there's in the code, the fee2 address is the one that gets the platform fee. And then the fee2 setter is what its variable name is called, is the address that could change that first address. So you leave fee2 setter blank or zeroed out. I think either one of them would work. But, you know, the devs will test it. And then I would prefer to see, and this is the design intention, is that instead of taking the platform fee and sending it to an address, this creates huge problems in my opinion. So like PancakeSwap does this. They point their platform fee to an address, and then that address is controlled by people, and then those people are responsible for doing what the business logic they advertise says. So they say they're going to do a buy and burn. Okay. And then, well, what if the guy that has the admin keys just stays asleep? Then you don't get your buy and burn. Or what if he just sends all the money to himself instead of buying and burning, right? I'm in cryptocurrency to reduce counterparty risk wherever possible and make things more secure and more decentralized and more reliable and more trustless. So, you know, relying on a human to wake up and do something that profits other people more than it profits himself, that's a big ask, you know. I don't like that. So I invented, and I think it's one of the first times it'll ever be seen, is that you harvest, or the platform fee gets sent to a contract address, and then that contract address has public functions that allow anyone that wants to run the public function, just like anyone can run good accounting in the hex system, or anyone can run the daily update in the hex system. Well, the same thing applies with this. Anyone will be able to run the buy and burn function, and they just choose which pairs they want to buy and burn for, and then pay the gas, and it runs. And then what it'll do is it'll take the platform fee that's in the fee2 address, and it will perform a buy action or a swap action on itself, the PulseX platform, and will turn all of those various coins that it received as fees. So when you swap, you pay a fee. What do you pay the fee in? The coin that you have, not the coin that you want. And so when you pay your fee, the people that are providing liquidity or the platform fee, they get a bunch of random coins for whatever pairs people are trading on and whatever side of the pair they entered in. So now people go, they run the public function, they choose what pairs they want, because maybe some illiquid pair you don't care, or maybe some, you know, pair doesn't exist anymore. Who knows, right? Like, there's a whole lot of variables. So the people choose the pairs they want, they pay their gas, and then the contract will execute the swap on the PulseX system, which is funny because it actually is self-amplifying. So when people trade, it generates fees, and only the PulseX holders will benefit from that because it's going to buy PulseX and then burn it, and with no admin keys. Awesome, you know. Pancake doesn't have that. No one has that I'm aware of. Really cool innovation. So, and it's also cooler than, say, so some of these systems, they just issue new coins, right? So Sushi issues new coins. So let me lay out some numbers for you guys. Uniswap charges a 0.3% liquidity fee, or fee, and then the liquidity providers make that. They don't get any extra coins, and there's no buy and burn. And then Sushi, the fee is also 0.3% to the end user. However, the liquidity provider only gets 0.25%. And so 0.05 is missing. And where does that go? Well, that goes into like a treasury. And then who gets that money? People that take their Sushi and stick it in a contract, and it just sits there, and they call it X Sushi, and then they're the ones that get those rewards. But that's not... It's okay. But Uniswap has more volume and more users, and the LPs get more. And so how do you target these other entities and beat them? So my take on this is, well, let's give the end users a better deal. So instead of the end users paying 0.3%, why don't they just pay 0.29? So my suggestion for PulseX is that the fee for users is 0.29. Then you peel off for the platform fee 0.06. Why? Because it's the largest amount of buy and burn that I'm aware of. So, the only other platform that I know that has buy and burn, that has volume, is PancakeSwap, and their buy and burn is 0.05. All right, well, 0.06 is higher than 0.05, and 0.29 is lower than 0.30, which is the most common fee. So now you're giving the users a better deal. You're having a larger buyback and burn. And now what's another issue? Even though Pancake buys backs and burns with an admin key, it's still net inflationary because they're constantly minting new coins to like reward people for putting liquidity in their pools. It's net inflationary. In PulseX, we're not going to have any inflation, none, because PulseX will not be minted to reward people for adding liquidity to pools. So if you do the math, a 0.06 buy and burn is a 21% buy and burn of the total fee of 0.29. So 0.06 is 21% of 0.29. And I'll verify that for luck, just to make sure my math's right. 0.06 over 0.29 is 20.68. So it's 21%. That's pretty big buy and burn, 21%. So basically, the sacrificers that have all the PulseX coins, they're going to get buyback and burns of 20.68% on all of the volume that goes through the system. I think that's a really big deal, and let me tell you why. These automated market maker systems kind of compete with each other. What do users care about? Getting the best deal. How do they get the best deal? Liquidity. The thickest order book is going to have the least slippage, is going to get them the best price in the end if they're trading any kind of volume. If it was like a tiny trade, maybe gas fee and the 0.3 thing would matter more. But in the end, the thing that matters the most for large users that generate the majority of the volume is liquidity. So in the PulseX system, so like the TLDR too long didn't read kind of summary is, the automated market maker ratio bot is the first transaction at the fork, goes and harvests 99.9% of all of the liquidity out of Uniswap, out of Sushi, probably out of 0x, anywhere that it can find it pretty much. Obviously there's programming involved, so there may be little pockets that are missed. Now what happens? All of that liquidity will be added. So all those PRC20s are getting harvested, and then they're getting added as liquidity into PulseX. Originally I thought that you would need to mint 6% of the PulseX supply in order to match the other side. But I think you might only have to mint the square root of 6%, which might be like 2.5 or something. Let's see what the square root of 6 is. 2.449, so 2.45. Good guess. So what you're going to have is a system where holders of PulseX receive price appreciation from buybacks and burns with no admin keys from the most liquid automated market maker on the PulseChain network, because it went and emptied out all of the liquidity from all the PRC20s on, by all I mean like the vast majority, on Uniswap, SushiSwap, and other places, Bancorp, 0x, things like that. Which makes it the most liquid AMM, which means that people are going to get the least slippage, which means that most of the users are likely going to use that AMM. So even though Uniswap comes over in the fork, and even though Sushi comes over in the fork, it's very likely that people will choose to use PulseX instead of those because they got emptied of their liquidity. So now you have a critical mass that's hard to overcome for new AMMs. It's just like, why aren't there more eBays? There's just one eBay. because sellers only want to list ads where there's already buyers, and buyers only want to go browse sites that already have stuff for sale. And so you have this chicken and egg critical mass issue, and any market has the same thing. And that's what, you know, Uniswap and other automated market maker exchanges are. They're markets. People have to be on both sides. So I think having by far vastly, I mean, you're combining liquidity of all the largest market makers in Uniswap or in Ethereum into one market maker. And then you're having a lower fee. You're doing the largest buyback and burn. And then, so this is like minimum viable. So minimum viable is Uniswap v2 fork, which we've already got. Like that's already there. Set the fee2 address, remove the ability to change it, do write the code for the automated buy and burn. That's not written yet. And the second part, it's not minimum viable, but I think it will be nice. So what do I want to see happen? I want to see everyone bridge in their ERC20s and back the value of their PRC20s that they got for free. Because the LP guys, they're getting harvested. The liquidity providers, they're getting harvested. But everybody else, the vast majority, only maybe 6% of coins, rough guess, only about 6% of coins of total supply is sitting in Uniswap or similar. So the vast majority of ERC20s and PRC20s are going to be sitting outside of those. They're sitting in people's wallets, just liquid. So we want to see people bridge in their ERC20s, put them in PulseX, in a new pair with their PRC20 they got for free and yield farm. And they're going to make 0.22% on every trade. So the user is paying 0.9, the liquidity provider is receiving 0.22, the buy and burn is 0.06, and there's a 0.01. Don't have any expectations of work from the other's address. Have no expectations of it. So you have the most liquidity on the system. You have no admin keys, which, by the way, I mean, Uniswap has admin key. They can turn on that fee whenever they want. With ours, it's just going to start in the end state with the fee already on, and then you don't have to ever worry about the state changing from an admin key because there won't be any admin keys. It's better. It's vastly better, in my opinion. So now you've got the most liquid system where people can bridge in their ERC20s to back the value of their PRC20s. And so now, I mean, who received those PRC20s? Those guys, right? You got PRC20s for free. Nobody else got them. There's no dilution. The only people in the world that got those PRC20s are the people that had the ERC20s. So you bridge in your ERC20, pair it with your free PRC20, get your 0.22%, and then you get a second token. Now, what does a second token do? The second token, and it's still a design phase, right? This is the plan as it stands. I think it's a good plan. This is like one question as to how to do things, which I mentioned to you. When you have this new token's inflationary. Why? Because it has to reward people that are always doing stuff, and so it always has to reward them. Now you make the inflation decline over time, similar to how Bitcoin did. People like that. And it only goes to people that provide liquidity. Now, I think that this extra, so if you didn't have this and you just had the minimum viable product, that would be fine, right? Like, so minimum viable, you could do it without the buy and burn, but I love the buy and burn. I think it's great. Positive price pressure forever. Love it. So I consider the buy and burn minimum viable. And I don't think it's that hard to code. This add-on part, the extra token, someone has to choose which coins receive this extra token. And that gives you two options. You either have to use an admin key or you can use a DAO. And of the two, DAO's better. So why can't you just hard code it? Because things change. So if you do a liquidity incentive program with this extra token that's on, it's inflationary, but the amount that it inflates decreases over time, and you assign that to, let's say, the existing bridged in USDC. So let's say it was the bridged in USDC with Hex, But what if the USDC company Circle actually issues native USDC on PulseChain, as they have done for other chains? Well, then now you wouldn't want to incentivize people to use the less efficient, abstracted USDC on Ethereum that requires bridges that would be inefficient and silly. You would much rather incentivize the new USDC contract and the new USDC pair that was a direct to Circle pair. And, you know, what if they just upgrade their contract and you need to use a new address? What if one of the coins you're incentivizing has an exploit, et cetera, et cetera? So you cannot, if you tried to hard code the incentive coin, you would have to really choose things that can't ever change. It really ties your hands behind your back. So I think DAO is the right solution for deciding which coins are going to be incentivized and to what degree. And so the question that I put on Twitter was, which coin should control the DAO? Should it be the PulseX coins or should it be the incentive coin? And when you think about it, if you give the incentive coin voting rights to mint itself, I think that people will try and game the system and just amplify the rewards for the pairs that they hold and that they're providing liquidity on at the cost of other people, because it's a finite amount of inflation and you can only split it across, you know, if someone gets more, someone gets less. Whereas if you look at the PulseX holders are incentivized to see the maximum amount of volume, because the maximum amount of volume generates them the most buy and burn. So I think that the PulseX holders are more likely to accurately move around the weights of these things in a way that's healthy for the volume of the ecosystem, than the actual liquidity providers would be. I mean, liquidity providers are oftentimes locusts. They go where the yield is high, and as soon as they find a better yield, they just leave. Which oftentimes means that they don't have long-term thinking, they don't care about the long term, and that tends to not be good. So I think that the DAO that controls which incentive coins, which coins and liquidity pairs are incentivized and to what degree, I think that that should be under the control of the PulseX holders.